Okie dokie. You ready? Find out what this is all about.
Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is a solid, entertaining action movie with some great set pieces, wonderful visual design, a refreshingly simple and minimalistic script that accomplishes a lot with very little, sharply drawn characters played by very capable actors, and a story that helps to flesh out the world laid down in Fury Road a decade earlier. The only problem here is the whole Mad Max thing, which is pretty misleading when it's got absolutely nothing to do with him, and perhaps explains why the movie opened to a dismal 31 million Memorial Day weekend and is already on track to become yet another disappointing flop in a year that's getting pretty crowded with them. But
Yeah, I kept hearing how terrible it was, and it was horrible, and the box office was terrible, and I was like, that's what I was thinking. Now, here's the thing: if he liked Fury Road, and this is in the same vein and feeling and look and everything of Fury Road, I didn't like Fury Road. I actually turned Fury Road off in the middle of it. That's how much I did not like it. So I had been toying with the idea of going to see this. I was like, let me see what the good old drinker said. Maybe he'll change my mind. I don't know if he will, but we shall see.
more on that later. The point I'm making is that this is all a bit of a shame because taking Furiosa on its own merits, I actually really enjoyed this movie. The action scenes were visceral and impactful enough to keep me entertained, even if it's pretty obvious they relied a lot more on CGI this time around. Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth both turning great performances, and the simple, straightforward story of revenge and redemption was a nice change from the pointlessly convoluted crap that so many screenwriters churn out just to try to look smart. Anyway, on with the plot analysis. So the movie begins with a very extended preamble showing Furiosa as a kid living in the idyllic green place before getting snatched away by a gang of marauders, eventually ending up in the hands of the warlord Dementus, who wants to take the green place for himself so that he can strip it for resources. Naturally, Furiosa isn't too keen on helping him, especially after he crucifies her.
Amazing how much your nose means to you as far as how you look. Like, he's almost unrecognizable. If you didn't know who he was, he's almost unrecognizable from certain angles with that nose.
Her mother to death for trying to rescue her. Oh, you naughty boy, Dementus. Anyway, eventually he and his biker army wind up at the Citadel, ruled over by Immortan Joe, and after taking control of the oil refinery nearby, he's able to broker a deal where he supplies Joe with oil and Joe supplies him with food and water. And as part of the deal, Furiosa gets handed over to Joe to become one of his many wives. Man, sometimes you just can't catch a break. Anyway, Furiosa's not too keen on that idea, and after escaping, she disguises herself as a boy and becomes a mechanic instead, slowly working her way up the ranks until eventually she finds herself stationed on the war rig, piloted by the charismatic Praetorian Jack. But with tensions rising between Immortan Joe and Dementus and war about to break out, what is Furiosa to do? Will she risk it all to take revenge against the man who stole everything from her, or ride off into the sunset in search of her childhood home? I mean, let's be real here, if you've seen Fury Road then you probably know the answer already, and I think that's part of the problem with a prequel like this. Fury Road had already closed out Furiosa's story and gave us the resolution we were looking for, so this is more like filling in the gaps of a history that we didn't particularly care about. Want to know how she lost her arm and replaced it with a metal one? Want to know more about her relationship with Immortan Joe? Want to know how she came to be in command of the war rig? Nah, me neither, because the answers to those questions are never going to be as interesting as the mystique around the character. They're all just details in a story that's already been told, and told pretty well. I mean, as a standalone movie, it's perfectly serviceable, even pretty gripping at times. This younger, less experienced Furiosa is a cool enough character, tough and scrappy and resilient, but with just enough compassion and humanity left in her, driven by her desperate desire to find a way back home. And damn man, it makes this scene from Fury Road all the more poignant in retrospect. Anya Taylor-Joy has some pretty big shoes to fill, but to be fair, she does a commendable job with the role. She's a great actress in most roles, but I wasn't really sure how capable she'd be as an action star. For the most part though, I think she does a solid job. She's wily and agile rather than pretending to be some big powerful brawler, which makes her combat scenes a little bit more believable at least. That being said, I'm pretty sure that being strung up by a severely fractured arm would reduce even the toughest person to tears, so I'm not really sure I bought that segment. We get it, you're really strong and determined, but you can still feel pain. Chris Hemsworth is probably the star of the show, though. His performance as Dementus is just the right combination of cunning, charisma, and pure sadistic insanity. He's a man who...
Wonder why they gave him that nose. Did they give him the nose because they wanted to distinguish this look from Thor? Because he's got long hair. It's interesting to me. Yeah, there's a lot of actors where like they're in several different movies and they look the same as they do in other films where they are actually more iconic. You get what I'm saying? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. He has a particular look, a particular haircut. But he's also been in other movies with that same look and haircut, but they didn't give him a different nose or anything. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at? I know you do.
In his element wherever he's got a war to fight or an enemy to outsmart, and it's interesting that he gradually comes unstuck during a prolonged peace where he's got nothing to do except rule over his little kingdom. The Mad Max series has always been known for its intense and very physical action scenes. Fury Road really set the bar for what was possible with practical effects, and while Furiosa definitely has a good stab at it, it never quite rises to the same level. In fact, it's pretty obvious where they use CGI to render stuff that would have been impossible to do for real, undermining some of the appeal of this franchise. There's a long chase and...
Unlike Fury Road, this has more of a campiness to it, like a camp and over the like Fury Road's over the top, but this it's the combination of the camp look and the over the topness that just it kind of takes me out of it. And I know some movies go for that and some people like that, but it's not doing it for me.
Battle sequence over the war rig around the midpoint of the movie, which is fucking awesome to watch, but the problem is that it never really gets better than that. There isn't any big blowout action scene to cap the whole movie off, and if anything, the finale is actually pretty downbeat and anticlimactic, and probably drags on a bit too long. On that subject, actually, at 2.5 hours, Furiosa definitely suffers from runtime bloat, mostly because the movie doesn't really get going until like the 40-minute mark. Don't get me wrong, there's some great moments in that intro sequence that really help define Furiosa's motivation as a character, but honestly, it could have been wrapped up in like
the hell was that?
minutes. As it stands, it's almost half an hour longer than Fury Road, which arguably had more plot and character elements to deal with, and the unfortunate result is a film that feels bloated and sluggish towards the ends. And when I think about this movie and the story it sets out to tell, the question that keeps coming up for me is, why? Why tell this particular story almost a decade after the hype for the last film had died down, when it wasn't even that profitable at the time? Ago? Was the world really crying out for a Furiosa prequel? And why call it Mad Max when it's got nothing to do with Max? Is it because you know that's what people really wanted to see here? One last ride for old man Max to bring his story to a close? Yeah, something tells me we're never going to see that. Like I say, Furiosa is not a bad movie by any stretch, and in a lot of ways it's a solid action flick that should appeal to general audiences. But then again, so was The Fall Guy and Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and those films both bombed at the box office. Maybe it's ticket prices, maybe it's because most movies end up on streaming within a matter of weeks anyway, or maybe it's just general apathy towards Hollywood these days.
Could be.
Either way, we're witnessing a depressing trend of
people don't trust them anymore.
Films that should be crowd pleasers running straight into a brick wall of public apathy. And it seems like Furiosa might just be destined to join them.
And you've been girl bossing it up so much that the women are tired of it. Everyone's tired of it. And it makes me wonder if a lot of people that were like, may not even be I think that if this isn't woke, that because it was a girl boss, so many people have been irritated by it that they just didn't go see it. That's what I'm thinking is a possibility too.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Well, Drinker liked it. If you liked Fury Road, like I said, it felt similar to me whenever I was watching, so, yeah. He hasn't convinced me to go see it, though. So, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to go see it. I really wanted to give it a shot, but Post comments down below. Let me know what you all thought. If you enjoyed my reaction and thoughts, hit the like button, subscribe and share, and subscribe to the Critical Drink Air. That rhyme day to play the game. Bars!